Welcome to an exploration of the human mind, where we delve into thinking fast and slow, a groundbreaking concept by Daniel Kahneman. This Nobel laureate has thrown open the doors to our understanding of the mind's intricate workings by introducing us to two key mental systems. System 1, a swift and instinctive player, operates intuitively and automatically, making snap judgments and decisions. On the other hand, we have System 2, the thoughtful and deliberate thinker, taking its time to analyze and ponder before taking action. These two systems coexist within us, influencing our thinking, our judgments, our decisions, and ultimately, our actions. But they are not always in harmony, and this discord can lead to fascinating insights into the human psyche. Join us as we unravel the complexities of human cognition and challenge the notion of purely rational decision-making. Dive into the world of System 1, the intuitive and automatic part of our brain. This mental powerhouse operates largely behind the scenes, influencing our thoughts and behaviors in ways we're often unaware of. So let's get to know System 1 a bit better. System 1 is the speed demon of our cognitive processes. It's quick to respond, making lightning-fast judgments based on the information it has at hand. Imagine you're walking in the woods and you spot a long, slithering shape in the grass. Before you can even blink, you've jumped back, your heart racing. That's System 1 in action, reacting to potential danger without waiting for a thorough analysis. However, System 1 isn't just about fight or flight responses. It also plays a role in our everyday activities. Think about when you're driving on a familiar route, or again, when you effortlessly catch a ball thrown your way. These automatic responses are all thanks to System 1, which relies on intuition and experience to guide these actions. Yet, while this system is incredibly efficient, it's not always accurate. It's prone to making assumptions, filling in gaps with what it expects, rather than what actually is. For instance, when you see the word read, your brain automatically assigns it a pronunciation based on context, even though the word can be pronounced two different ways. System 1 also has a knack for spotting patterns, even when they don't exist. This tendency can sometimes lead us to see connections or causality in random events, a phenomenon known as apophenia. It's why we might see shapes in clouds or hear messages in static noise. Though it's a wonder how System 1 manages to handle so much of our thinking without us even noticing, it's important to be aware of its limitations. It's quick, it's intuitive, and it's automatic, but it's not always right. It can lead us to jump to conclusions, make erroneous connections, and overlook important details. System 1, though quick and intuitive, can sometimes lead us astray, making us prone to errors and biases. This is why it's crucial to understand how this system works so we can better navigate its strengths and pitfalls in our daily lives. Now let's turn our attention to System 2, the deliberate and thoughtful counterpart. System 2 is the part of our mind that kicks in when we need to concentrate. Unlike the intuitive and automatic System 1, System 2 is responsible for slow, deliberate, and thoughtful responses. Think of it as the mental equivalent of a manual transmission car, where you have to consciously change the gears. It's not as quick as System 1, but it's more precise and less prone to making snap judgments. You can experience System 2 in action when you're solving a complex math problem, making a difficult decision, or again learning a new skill. These are all instances where your brain can't rely on automatic responses or pre-existing patterns. You have to think it through, weigh the options, and often push through the discomfort of not knowing the answer right away. However, engaging System 2 requires more mental effort. It's like a mental muscle that gets tired after heavy use. That's why after a long day of making decisions or solving problems, you might feel mentally exhausted. This is often referred to as decision fatigue. It's also worth noting that System 2 is not immune to errors. For instance, it can be influenced by how information is presented. If probabilities are framed in a certain way, it can lead us to make different decisions. This is known as the framing effect. One of the key roles of System 2 is to monitor and control the impulses of System 1. When System 1 jumps to conclusions or makes a snap judgment, System 2 can step in, slow things down, and make a more reasoned decision. However, it's not always successful. Sometimes System 1 is too quick, or again System 2 is too lazy. System 2, with its thoughtful deliberation, acts as a check on System 1, but it also has its own set of challenges. But understanding these two systems can help us navigate the complexities of our minds and make better decisions. Let's delve deeper into the interplay between these two systems in the next part. Now that we understand both systems, let's look at how they interact and influence our decisions. Think of System 1 and System 2 as a dynamic duo. They work together, but each has its own strengths and weaknesses. System 1 is like the quick, instinctive, and somewhat impulsive superhero. It jumps into action without much thought. On the other hand, System 2 is the thoughtful, analytical, and slower sidekick. It takes time to process information and make decisions. Their interplay is a fascinating dance. Sometimes, System 1 takes the lead, allowing us to make quick decisions based on instinct and intuition. This is particularly useful in situations where we need to act fast, like dodging a ball thrown at us. But there are times when this fast thinking can lead us astray, making us prone to errors and biases. That's where System 2 comes in. It's like a safety net, ready to step in when things get tricky. When we encounter a challenging problem or need to make a complex decision, System 2 fires up, taking its time to analyze the situation and guide us towards a more considered response. However, System 2 isn't always as vigilant as we'd like. It's a bit of a mental couch potato, preferring to conserve energy whenever possible. That's why we often default to the quicker, easier System 1. But when System 2 does kick in, it can override the impulsive responses of System 1, leading to better, more rational decisions. This interplay between the two systems isn't just an interesting psychological concept. It has real-world implications. It affects our judgments, our decisions, and ultimately our lives. The trick is to strike a balance, to know when to trust our gut and when to take a step back and think things through. So, as we navigate through life, let's remember this dynamic duo. Let's appreciate the intuitive genius of System 1 and the thoughtful wisdom of System 2. And most importantly, let's strive to harness the power of both systems to make better decisions. The balance and interaction between these two systems shape our thinking, decision-making, and ultimately, our lives. Despite its power, our mind can sometimes get lazy. Let's explore how this mental laziness can lead to errors. Mental laziness, as intriguing as it sounds, is a real phenomenon. It's when our brain, in an attempt to conserve energy, opts for the path of least resistance. This typically means relying more on System 1, our intuitive and automatic way of thinking. While this system serves us well in many situations, it's prone to errors when faced with complex problems that require more thoughtful and deliberate processing. Consider this. Have you ever found yourself reaching for the same brand of cereal at the supermarket, even though you've never really taken the time to compare it with other brands? That's mental laziness. Our brain defaults to what is familiar and easy, rather than expending energy on evaluating other options. This mental shortcut can also lead to cognitive biases, skewing our judgment and decision-making. For instance, the anchoring bias. Imagine you're buying a car, and the dealer sets the initial price. Even if you negotiate, that first number often influences your perception of what the car is worth, and you might end up paying more than intended. That's your System 1 at work, taking the easy route of using the first piece of information as a reference point, rather than critically analyzing the car's actual value. Similarly, mental laziness can result in statistical pitfalls. We often rely on heuristics, Oregon mental shortcuts, to make sense of statistics, but these can lead us astray. For instance, if we hear that a disease affects 1 in 1,000 people, we might think we're safe, but if we're told it affects 1,000 out of 1,000,000 people, it suddenly seems more common, even though the risk is the same. Our brain, in its desire for cognitive ease, can misinterpret these statistics, causing unnecessary worry or complacency. Recognizing our mental laziness is the first step towards making better decisions. By being aware of our tendency to default to System 1, we can consciously engage our System 2, our thoughtful and deliberate mode of thinking, to navigate complex situations more accurately. So the next time you catch yourself on autopilot, remember, mental effort can lead to better outcomes. Our decisions are not always driven by logic. Often our emotions play a significant role. Let's delve into this aspect. Emotions, those complex reactions to our personal experiences, have a profound influence on our decision-making process. They are the silent puppeteers pulling the strings of our choices, often without us even realizing it. They can override our rational thinking and influence both the intuitive System 1 and the analytical System 2. Let's take a closer look at how this works. Emotions can fast-track our decisions, bypassing the slower, more deliberate processes of System 2. This is particularly true in situations that demand immediate response. Imagine you're walking down a dark alley and hear a sudden rustling sound behind you. Fear kicks in and you decide to run even before your rational mind has time to analyze whether the threat is real or imagined. That's your emotional response steering your decision, courtesy of System 1. But what about System 2, the thoughtful and deliberate part of our cognition? Surely it's immune from the influence of emotions, right? Well, not exactly. Even our slow, logical thinking can be swayed by emotions. For instance, consider making a big purchase like a house or a car. Despite the hours spent on research and comparisons, the final decision often comes down to how a particular option makes us feel. This emotional influence, often subtle and unnoticed, guides our rational thinking towards a decision that aligns with our emotions. Emotions also play a pivotal role in decision-making when it comes to personal relationships and social interactions. Love, empathy, anger, jealousy. These feelings can shape our choices and actions in profound ways, often overriding our logical reasoning. So, yes, our decisions are not always the cold, calculated outcomes of rational thinking. They are often colored and shaped by our emotions. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, we're not robots. Our emotions add a layer of richness and depth to our experiences and decisions. Understanding the emotional influence on our decisions can help us make more balanced and rational choices. Recognizing the sway of emotions doesn't mean we should suppress them. Instead, it's about acknowledging their presence and impact and using that knowledge to make more informed, balanced decisions. After all, the best decisions are made when the heart and the mind work in harmony. As we conclude our journey through the mind, let's recap the key points we've covered. We started by introducing the dual systems of thinking, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is our intuitive automatic pilot, making snap judgments and operating largely below the level of conscious thought. On the other hand, System 2 is our deliberate, thoughtful self, the one that takes its time, weighs all the options, and makes rational decisions. We then delved into the interplay between these two systems. We discovered that they don't operate in isolation but rather influence each other in intricate ways. For instance, System 1 can prime System 2, setting the stage for a specific line of thinking. Conversely, System 2 can override the intuitive responses of System 1, taking control when more careful deliberation is needed. We also explored how mental laziness, largely a characteristic of System 1, can lead to errors in our judgments and decisions. This mental laziness often results in us defaulting to heuristics or mental shortcuts, which, while efficient, can also lead to biases and statistical pitfalls. Lastly, we discussed the powerful role of emotions in our decision-making process. Emotions, largely a product of System 1, can color our perceptions and influence our choices, often without us even realizing it. In essence, our journey through the mind has revealed the complexities of our cognitive processes and the delicate balance between intuition and deliberation, emotion and reason. By understanding these dual systems and their interplay, we can strive to make better decisions, be more aware of our cognitive biases, and lead a more mindful life. Remember, understanding our mental systems and their interplay is the key to making better decisions and leading a more mindful life. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of thinking fast and slow.